is not responsible for and does not endorse any claims, products, or advertisers mentioned in this program, and disclaims any liability for any representations, availability, conditions, and/or quality.
Good morning. Welcome to Frank Conversation. And boy, do I have an incredible guest for you today. And before I talk about this guest, he is very well known in our city and our state, and I'll let him share that first. But Keith Lowhorn, welcome and thank you.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Yes, and before we talk about the gap, which is very interesting for me, which lines up with generational poverty.
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell us how long you've been in Huntsville and little history?
Sure, I'll be glad to. My father retired. He was in the Air Force, and in 1972 we came to Huntsville, which is where my mother and his parents lived, and we've been here ever since. And Huntsville is home. Has been home for a long, long time. I was in the TV business for 43 years before I retired.
Yes.
And then I worked for a few nonprofits here and there, and then I really retired. Until what happened, and
yes.
that is our first one of our first grandchildren was born addicted to drugs.
Yes,
his biological was a habitual drug offender,
right.
And he was born with drugs, and we entered into a world that we did not know. Right. We had no idea what it was, even as well versed as I was in the community.
Right.
Here, I knew nothing about it.
So as you talk about that, let's tell the audience what GAP is.
Sure.
And why, this program is about generational poverty, areas that our audience may not know, grandparents, things like that.
Sure.
Let's kind of share with the audience how you got into it and what GAP is.
Sure. GAP is Grandparents as Parents, and our slogan is we're filling the gap, because grandparents are filling the gap when the biologicals cannot or will not, for whatever the reason may be, and most of the time, in fact, 95% of the time, it's because of opioids. And so they choose their drugs over their babies.
Yes.
And in our case, that was the exact same thing. We had two grandchildren. Kyron was first.
Right.
And then a few years later, Harper was born. Same
right.
thing. Both had born addicted. The second time, DHR actually stepped in and she was arrested at the hospital because
yes.
she was doing some things that she shouldn't have done. And we got custody, and we went from temporary custody to permanent custody to the ability to adopt them. The parents' rights were terminated, and we stepped in and adopted them, and we're raising them as our children.
That's good. I don't think we understand how uneasy that is. It's not that easy to be a grandparent and have to get custody. You have the issue itself. So walk me through a little of that process before we expand on some more.
Well, it was a very hard thing for us to do because, first of all, we were retired. And we had plans. I had plans. We worked hard during my TV years. We saved money. We scrimped by, and we did all those things. And we were ready to retire. Being an Air Force brat,
right.
We wanted to travel back to Europe and the Far East, where I grew up. That's where I lived most of my life.
Yes, sir.
And so we wanted to go back there. But we knew that these children had to have a life.
Right.
The life that they had of being abused, being hurt, being every time that Kyron came to the house, he had some issue where he had been burned, where he had bruises, where he had actually had to go to the hospital and have stitches, but we couldn't find out why. And then when we brought Harper home from the hospital.
Wow.
So Kyron lived with us most of his life during those first 3 years before Harper, but they have their own bedrooms, they have everything that they needed, and so we stepped up because we didn't want them to go into foster care.
Right.
Everybody knows how that system is and is broken, and we know that. Maybe people don't want to admit that, but we know and realize that it's broken.
And I think another thing is people don't realize how much of this particular area grandparents with their kids are trying to get custody. Tell me how broad that is. How many families are looking for organizations to help them?
Well, grandparents are in need of support. Absolutely, because when you get into this, like we did, we thought we were alone. We were like, we're the only ones doing this. We're the only ones raising these grandchildren. And come to find out, well, there's 300,000 in Alabama.
300,000.
There's 300,000 grand families, and a grand family is the grandparent, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, cousin who may be raising the children.
Yes.
And their children may be a sibling. We have a lot of siblings that are raising younger brothers and sisters.
Right.
And then we have a lot of great grandparents that are stepping up.
Oh, wow.
Because because of issues with the grandmother and the mother are the parents. So in Alabama, there's about 35% of grandparents are raising their grandchildren.
Wow.
The new figure is right at 33%. So
Right.
it was 30, so it's gone up. So it's between 33 and that's the ones we know.
Right.
There are others that are intergenerational poverty that don't want any kind of intervention. They're afraid of the government stuff. They don't fill out census forms. They don't fill out all those forms that the government uses for reporting. And so we figured that there's at least 10 to 15 to 20% more than that because we run into them.
Yeah, and that's good. And we'll, as we move into the next segment, we'll get a little bit deeper because I again, as an audience, from a generational perspective, these are areas that can help families navigate generational poverty.
Absolutely.
And we will talk about that shortly.
Great.
Your food is cooked fresh, delivered hot, and set up for you to enjoy. A Southern experience brought right to your door. Small or large, Walton Southern Table will take care of all of your catering needs. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Introducing the Landers McClarty Subaru Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event. Every certified pre-owned Subaru is backed by a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, interest rates as low as 2.9%, and a comprehensive 152-point inspection. Plus, they are priced 20 to 40% lower than a new Subaru. Take home a certified pre-owned Subaru today. We're located at 5790 University Drive or online at LandersMcClartySubaru.com. Landers McClarty Subaru, a Frank Williams dealership.
Good evening, folks. I'm reporting live from Landers McClarty Subaru, where we have a huge controversy on our hands. Apparently, Frank Jr. is offering up to $10,000 in trade assistance on any new 2025 Subaru Outback.
That's right, up to $10,000 in trade assistance.
As you can see, the sales team is in an uproar, but don't miss out on these deals.
Visit us today during the Subaru A Lot to Love event and get complimentary maintenance included. Landers McClarty Subaru, we're more than a car dealer.
I'm Jonathan Powell, and I'm a Stakeout customer. Before a big film shoot, I always get steak tips. If you're really busy and don't have time to cook, just call Stakeout. They'll cook for you.
Well, Keith, I think we could talk a whole lot today, but we want to get into some substance. Gap, what are things that happen inside of the organization that actually helps families? Like, lay out a few things.
Sure. Well, our main focus when the pandemic hit, the first thing we started getting calls about was food. People were scared about food.
Really?
Absolutely. They couldn't go to the grocery store because they didn't want to, because grandparents cannot afford day babysitters.
Yes, sir.
So they didn't want to take the children to the grocery store if they could.
Yes.
So we got those calls, and so we reached out to a couple of friends from my work days, and they said, absolutely, come get what you need. So we actually, since the pandemic, we've given out 130 tons of food to grandparents from our driveway.
Wow.
This is from our driveway. Yeah, and it's even, the funniest part about that is when we first started this, we live in a HOA neighborhood,
Right.
and cars were lined up and down the street.
Wow.
And so, of course, you got some complaints, and so the HOA president came down and said, what are you doing?
Right.
I explained to him, he said, don't worry about it.
Wow.
He said, when I was raised by my grandparents, one day my grandparents came to our house where we live with my mom and dad,
Right.
and they were passed out with drugs all around them.
Wow.
I was in the dryer.
Wow.
And they took him, and he never saw his parents again. It's not, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's
So
amazing.
you have food and some other things.
Yeah,
you
we do school supplies, we do
School supplies,
clothes, we
okay.
do school supplies. We have community meetings
Wow.
Which is really.
Tell me what happens in a community meeting.
We do so many things because so many of our grandparents think they're all by themselves. So we are there to assure them that they're not. Mm-hmm. We're there to comfort and advocate for them. Mm-hmm. We usually have speakers that bring just a wealth of knowledge that could be available to them. Mm-hmm. And when they reach out we're trying to help legally. We're trying to help with advocates. We're trying to help on a state level, a national level, even a local level.
Wow.
So it's just we try to give information that is valuable to these people that are living their golden years, raising the next generation.
Yeah, that's good. And I think when you talk to next generation, you talk Huntsville, you talk Madison. Mm-hmm. What I love about the Gap is it's not one segment of community that it's affecting. Won't you give me a broader perspective of how this is affecting poor, rich, middle class?
It doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, what color your skin is, or how rich you are, or how poor you are. It can happen to you.
Yes.
And in a lot of instances, we tell people, you're one step away from where I am.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, it may not be drugs, but something may happen to you or your wife or together, and somebody's got to take care of those kids.
Yes.
So hopefully it won't happen, but you're one step away from it.
What are some success stories, Keith, now that you've been with the Gap for a few years? Give me some success stories, including maybe your grandkids?
You know, Harper and Kyron are doing very, very, very well. Kyron was born with a plethora of drugs, and he has a lot of issues.
Right.
Harper is just she's my princess. She's perfect in all ways, and you know, I've never raised a daughter before, and so this is really a first for me. And besides being spoiled, and gets what she wants, she loves her.
How old are they now?
Now Kyron is 11 and Harper is 8.
Wow. And that happened. What were the age that happened?
Oh, we brought Harper home from the hospital.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then Kyron was 11 years old. We actually had him more times than the biologicals did because they would rather party and do their drugs than take care of Kyron.
So you've got a decade already with some success stories.
Yeah.
You have anybody in particular, not a name, but any success story you can think of recently?
You know, we find a success when a grandparent has those kids.
Yes.
When they take them under their roof and they claim them as their own, and they feed them with what they've got. They clothe them with what they can get, and they educate them with what they need.
Yes.
So you know, it's amazing what these grandparents are doing. You know, whether they're 40 years old or whether they're 85, we've got them all between.
Yes.
Which is amazing when you think you have a 40-year-old grandmother. You know.
And before we do a call to action on 300,000, is that Madison, Huntsville? Give me a.
That's statewide. That's a statewide.
Okay.
In our what I call the metro area, Huntsville, Madison County, Limestone, and Morgan County, it's about 60,000.
Okay,
that's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot, especially when you think of the income rate that's in Huntsville and how high it is, and even in Athens and even in Morgan County.
Right.
So we're reaching a lot of people. That are in need.
Yes. We want to get to when we get to our next segment of call to action, which is how can the audience help? And we'll talk about that. And then also whether that is volunteer, financial, whatever it may be.
Sure.
All right?
That sounds good.
I'm Jonathan Powell, and I'm a stakeout customer. Before a big film shoot, I always get steak tips. If you're really busy and don't have time to cook, just call Stakeout. They'll cook for you.
Good evening, folks. I'm reporting live from Landers McClarty Subaru, where we have a huge controversy on our hands. Apparently, Frank Jr. is offering up to $10,000 in trade assistance on any new 2025 Subaru Outback.
That's right, up to $10,000 in trade assistance.
As you can see, the sales team is in an uproar, but don't miss out on these deals.
Visit us today during the Subaru A Lot to Love event and get complimentary maintenance included. Landers McClarty Subaru, we're more than a car dealer.
Introducing the Landers McClarty Subaru Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event. Every certified pre-owned Subaru is backed by a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, interest rates as low as 2.9%, and a comprehensive 152-point inspection. Plus, they are priced 20 to 40% lower than a new Subaru. Take home a certified pre-owned Subaru today. We're located at 5790 University Drive or online at LandersMcClartySubaru.com. Landers McClarty Subaru, a Frank Williams dealership.
Join us for dinner at Walton's Southern Table. Enjoy great Southern dishes like catfish fillets, homemade chicken and dressing, and our classic meatloaf. At Walton's, we'll make you feel at home on the corner of Whitesburg and Airport, Huntsville.
Welcome back, Keith. Well, opiate, a very deadly drug, which we don't know the full effect and how much it can affect and destroy not only our families, our community. But when we think of GAP, I want to leave the drug out. I want to think about why GAP is so important, because it's not only helping the ones that are affected by this deadly drug, but GAP is really trying to help the whole family come together to get back in society, the young kids as well as the parents. So let's talk about that, because politically you're trying to also affect our state with some laws.
I never thought I would be doing this, but from my years in TV, man, I've learned a lot.
Yes,
so I really have. So what we want to do is the next generation of these children that were born addicted, they have all kinds of problems. They have problems in school that are bringing the numbers of schools. Most of these folks are now being homeschooled because they cannot interface with the public school systems, or because they don't have the programs to help these children with what they may need. Like Kyron, for instance, is about 20 hours a week. He's in therapy, 20 hours for this little 11-year-old. And so he can't go to public school because they don't have those kind of therapies, nor will they, and back in those days, they wouldn't excuse him for those absences.
Which is, people don't know the effect of that particular drug, how it destroys a family and destroys the kids' opportunity generationally to fit in society.
These kids are missing their parents, the people that they were born to, and that they're missing that whole life. Now, a lot of them OD and die. A lot of these parents, because they're stuck on drugs and they can't get off of drugs, and and it eventually takes over their life. And that's sad in itself.
Yes, sir.
Because they just those kids are being raised by their grandparents, who they call mom and dad, but it's we're grandpa and grammy. We're not the real parents, even though we are parents on paper.
Right.
And a lot of our grandparents finally realize that. And then they kind of have to turn their back to not worrying so much about their children, but worrying about their children's children.
Yes.
And that takes a lot. That's a lot of stress right there. I mean, just thinking if you just lost your son, if your son just went away and you just, I mean, that's bad. That's a terrible thing. So it's part of I think it's part of the way we live now, as these drugs are so plethora. I mean, you can find them on every street corner if you wanted to, and they're so cheap that anybody can buy them, or you can steal from something and take them and buy drugs.
How big is it for people to get involved physically, financially, to help GAP? Well, and the moral support that's needed in our community to let folks know that you're our neighbor and we should be there right with you. Go ahead.
Well, we appreciate that, but we're a relatively new 501c3. We got that last year in 2024. So we've become official, and of course, being a new organization, money is always the key to everything. It's the key because, like right now, my wife and I are basically putting the money up for storage units, for gas, for whatever we may need. And we're starting to get grants and write some grants and hopefully win some grants and maybe garner some attention. Our purpose in this right now is that we feel like our grandparents and the children who are raising those children deserve opioid money. Opioid money, because there's hundreds of millions of dollars of that floating down in the state of Alabama. I spoke to the opioid...
Which can get misappropriated, and I don't mean misappropriated in a bad way, but these are areas where the money could serve the families that have
directly
grandparents and great-grandparents.
And that's
that
our
are trying
purpose.
to fill the gap.
And when I went before the Opioid Commission, that was my point: is let's stop using the money with things that have not worked for years and decades. Let's try something new. Let's try something that will help our grandparents, who will help these children, who will help them get the therapies that they need, because there's not enough therapists in this town to take care of the drug babies. There's not enough doctors that will take Medicaid for these babies. There's just they're missing so much of what, let's say, I would hate to say a normal child, but a child that's raised by a parent and a mom and dad.
Yes.
So that has insurance, that has the ability to go to school, and has all these other things that they're focused on. Our children have all kinds of issues, whether they're mental, or whether it's just the fact that they are addicted. They're addicted. They stay addicted. You know, one thing you were warned at the hospital: do not give this baby Tylenol or anything else, because it could snap.
Wow.
You know, and it's amazing.
Well, Keith, I know we'll get into a few more things shortly, but I really appreciate the effort and your commitment in an area that I'm going to ask our audience and business leaders for a call to action.
We appreciate that.
Customers say that the turnip greens are made the way they should be made. We wash them 4 times over, cook them, wash them again, and then we finish the cooking process to serve to you hot on your plate. Come to Walton's today and try our classic Southern turnip greens. You won't be disappointed.
Introducing the Landers McClarty Subaru Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event. Every certified pre-owned Subaru is backed by a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, interest rates as low as 2.9%, and a comprehensive 152-point inspection. Plus, they are priced 20 to 40% lower than a new Subaru. Take home a certified pre-owned Subaru today. We're located at 5790 University Drive or online at LandersMcClartySubaru.com. Landers McClarty Subaru, a Frank Williams dealership.
Good evening, folks. I'm reporting live from Landers McClarty Subaru, where we have a huge controversy on our hands. Apparently, Frank Jr. is offering up to $10,000 in trade assistance on any new 2025 Subaru Outback.
That's right, up to $10,000 in trade assistance.
As you can see, the sales team is in an uproar, but don't miss out on these deals.
Visit us today during the Subaru A Lot to Love event and get complimentary maintenance included. Landers McClarty Subaru, we're more than a car dealer.
I'm Jonathan Powell, and I'm a stakeout customer. Before a big film shoot, I always get steak tips. If you're really busy and don't have time to cook, just call Stakeout. They'll cook for you.
Welcome back. Well, Keith, as we tap into a few more subjects, I just want to tell you, the GAP is an organization that we should know about in the city of Huntsville and Madison. And what is the goals that you would have? Short-term goals, call to action for our audience, for our business leaders, for our city leaders. What would you want to say to them about the GAP?
Well, GAP is filling the gap. We're filling the area that the children are not, they're not being raised by their parents, so they're being raised by a grandparent or aunt and uncle or brother and sister and those types. Our main focus right now is our children. I mean, making sure that they're safe, making sure that they're secure, making sure that they feel these things, making sure that they're loved. I mean, and those are the most important things is with the children. Now, of course, financially is what everybody needs. The call to action, of course, is that if we could somehow convince our local leaders to convince our state leaders that the opioid money should come to organizations, new organizations just like ours, who has a plan in place to do something that will help our grandparents.
That's good. And as we tap into that one stop, tell the audience about a part of GAP that's we're just now learning about.
Absolutely. One Stop Shop is my name for a program to where our grandparents will be able to go and find out about therapies that they may qualify for, state benefits they may qualify, WIC, food stamps, Medicaid, all those things. Because right now, our grandparents have to go all across the city to various different agencies to do this. We want to be able to follow a group out of Las Vegas who has a group called Foster Kinship. We are already with them. We're being trained by these people, and they are a nationally recognized 501c3 who does marvelous work.
And One Stop will be part of the GAP?
Absolutely. It will be the GAP, other than the programs that we have. But we want to be able to provide therapies there. We want to be able to find a safe space for grandparents. We want to be able to provide an area that we can teach that, whether it's about how can you get involved with TARCOG.
Wow.
Because TARCOG actually has money for grandparents, but there's this thing you got to do.
So let's tell the audience how to reach the GAP.
Okay. Well, we have a website and Facebook pages that are GAP Alabama, just GAP, and then spell out the word Alabama.org. You can call me on my cell phone, which is, I answer it all the time, is 256-698-2297. And if you need help, we will try our best to help you. We will give you guidance if you need help. You're not alone.
If someone has someone that falls into the GAP situation, they can also reach out based on the website?
Absolutely. And most of the website has a lot of answers. And if they don't answer your situation, then you call us and we will try to find a way that we can help you.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, on Frank Conversation, this is Frank J. Williams. You can go to our website also, which is frankjwilliams.com. You can also sign up for a newsletter that will also help you reach some of our constituents like the GAP and some other nonprofits that are starting to help our community. Thank you so much. This is definitely one that I would love the audience, the business leaders, and our government officials to try to support or reach out. Thank you so much for this episode.